everyone, this is Lisa Marie from Artistry by Lisa Marie. Welcome to the studio. Today I am going to play with some Ohuhu markers and Prismacolor pencils and hopefully create a beautiful, rich, dark skin tone using my markers and pencils. So right away, I'm just going to start with this darker marker color. It's chestnut brown, and I'm just blocking out some of the darker shadow sections. Just want to make sure I block out where the lighting is coming from, get a sense of where I really want the shadows to be, a little more rich. And I'm using the fine paint brush tip for this part, just because it's a little more precision work. With this part. So blocking out all the areas of her skin. That'll be the darkest. Like half. I'm filling that in a little bit more that way. Alright, so there's one. And her eye, I don't want to go too dark, but I do want a little bit there. And a little bit there. Okay. Next, I'm going to take the next color, which is Murin? Yeah. Also, I will be writing down all of the colors that I use, and I'm putting them in the video description for you, so you don't have to guess at what I'm saying. I'll write everything down for you guys as well. But now so I started with the dark, now the medium. So dark, medium, light. So this is the medium shadow color. And it's almost like sculpting. Sort of sculpting out her face. Contouring her face. If you use makeup a lot, that's a phrase you might know better. And blocking out now sort of the medium tone areas for the shadows. And Ohuhu are nice because they're blendable, so these colors are going to blend together, which is awesome. And then I'm going to go over these with colored pencil. And today I'm using Prismacolor pencil. Ohuhu and colored pencils play very well together, so that's nice. Especially when you want to make a rich skin tone color. You want it a little bit richer. There's a bit of shadow here, I definitely want. And then over here. And this is, this section of the pages I'm currently working on is Grayscale. So Grayscale, a scale of gray tones from dark gray to medium gray to light gray. So a good way to start planning your colors when you're going to be coloring Grayscale is just think of 1, 2, 3. 1 dark color, 1 medium color, and 1 light color. And once you have those picked out in your color palette, you can sort of expand from there to get additional colors in your palette. There we go. But for the markers, I'm just doing a fairly straightforward, dark, medium, and light. Blocking out those shadows. I love coloring and drawing dancers because their muscle definition is fantastic. They're very graceful, subject to draw, but also they're quite often in peak physical condition, so you can get a great sense of their muscles. And now here is the light. So we had a dark, we had medium, and now here's light. And this is called Barely Beige. And for this one, this lightest color, I'm just going to go right over the whole thing. And actually, if you just want to do markers and don't want to do pencils, I mean, that's nice right there in the sense of a skin tone color palette. Just want to make sure I get the whole page full of this marker color. But I'm going to be going over this whole thing with pencil because I really want to get some nice layers of color, some rich color development. I want to darken the skin tone a lot. And it's fun. And that's what coloring is all about, having fun. Right? Right. Right up to the edge there. Now we just go over the whole leg. Blend the whole thing together with this lighter color. Did I get that? Yeah, I got that. Get this little area. Usually I draw and color all grayscale, but this was really fun having this mandala design included. I like playing with the line design a little bit. Okay. So there's the skin tone. And you can see, again, I've blocked out the dark, medium, and light. And then her hair, I'm going to do the same thing. Just real quick. So I'm going to take the same colors. And I'm just going to do quick strokes of line. Pretty quick and easy. Dark. Again, same colors as the skin tone, so very unified color palette visually today. Medium. And here's the light. And light's gonna go over the whole thing. Another way to think of markers when you do this technique with the pencils is the markers are the underpainting. So they're just the underlayer of color, and then you're gonna build up over that underpainting or underlayer of color with the pencils. So here I have my pencils. I also have a white jelly roll pen, which I will be using a little bit later. But it's already here, ready to go, because that's how I do. So again, I talked about dark, medium, and light. And I started with a dark color, this dark, actually blue color. It's violet blue, by the way. And then a medium color, I went with this right here, which is chocolate. And then the light was this, salmon. Salmon? Salmon pink. Again, I'm going to write them all down for you. So this was my dark, medium, and light. And then once I had those three selected, I expanded my palette with several other colors. And I tossed in this raspberry red to fully further develop the color palette for the skin tone. But I started with a dark, medium, and light. And that's what I'm going to do now. So here is the violet blue. And I'm going to just go right over that dark that I've already laid down. And you'll think, oh, it's already dark. Why are you doing that? Because nothing's dark enough. When you want a rich, dark shadow, you need lots of layers. And layering right over the darkest part with this dark pencil is gonna give me a great opportunity to blend more colors together with that really dark color. So this is softening the transition from dark to medium for the shadows. And I'm not doing strokes. I'm not doing long strokes like I will with the hair. For the skin tone, I'm doing itty bitty circles. So you can't really see the pencil line too much, or the artist's hand. It's another way of saying it, where you can see where the artist's hand moved around on the paper. You can't really see that when I do itty bitty circles. Gonna get this. Another way of thinking, instead of blending, is almost blurring. I'm blurring the dark shadow areas that I mapped out with the marker. And I'm going to use that to better blend my shadows. I wish my calves looked this gorgeous in high heels, by the way. Connect those. It's kind of like connecting the dots, isn't it? Little line of shadow there. Now, I can also expand the dark shadow area beyond what I mapped out with the marker by doing this. Whee! There we go. Okay, so there's the dark. And I do have the medium and the light, but remember, I expanded my palette. I'm going to take this slightly lighter dark. It's called Espresso. I love the names for some of these pencils. I also love espresso, so that might be part of it. Stick, support my hand a little bit more. And I'm going right over, again, those dark shadow areas. So the blue, gives it a nice sort of richer blue bit of tone to the coloring, and now the espresso is going to blend with that right on the paper. And just bring it back from the coolness of that blue and make sure it stays a warmer shadow. They kind of neutralize each other out a little bit, but that's okay. And I can expand that a little bit more. And I can also start building shadows in other areas. And get that. The paper that I'm using, which is taking a lot of color today, is Nina Vellum Bristol paper, and I will put the link in the video description so you can go get some if you want some. But it's a little bit heavier paper, has a little more tooth to it, so that's why it looks a little rough right now in all the areas where I'm coloring all this in. This color is dark brown, by the way. And I like that. I want a heavier paper that can handle all these layers of color that I'm doing right now. So the dark brown, by the way, is going right over the other shadows. Getting a nice, rich, dark color. But the thing is, when I love printing my own coloring pages and choosing the paper that I want, because I do a lot. I do a lot of layers of color. I do a lot of mixed media, so lots of different elements playing together on a single piece of paper. And I need to make sure that the paper can hold its own, or survive at least. And not all paper can survive me when I'm coloring. So this is one of the papers that I've found can usually hold its own when I'm playing. But I am using marker and a lot of marker, so I do still put another piece of paper underneath this, and then I tape it down with painter tape. And it's just the nature of the medium. You know, it's marker. Marker bleeds through paper. That's just, you know, the way it is. So put another piece of paper behind it to catch any leak through. Every medium has, you know, pros and cons, and that's one of the things with markers is bleeds through. You know, if you were using oil paint, it would be a whole other, you know, slew of issues, such as, you know, taking forever to dry. Acrylics, you know, dry very fast. And what if you want more time to work? All mediums have, you know, pluses and minuses. So again, little circles, just going over, building up my shadows. I want a rich skin tone, so, you know, I'm not afraid of going pretty dark. Sometimes, you know, I'll say don't go too dark too fast, because once you put dark down, you can't take it away. But with this skin tone, I want to go dark. And if you hear that snoring in the background, that's the cat sleeping. And he doesn't care that I'm recording right now. He's going to do whatever he wants because he's a cat. So here we go. All right, got the dark brown. Now I'm going to get the chocolate, which, by the way, tastes wonderful with espresso if you've never done that combination before. So this is a little bit lighter than the other colors that I've used thus far. So I'm going to pull it a little bit further into the lighter areas of the skin tone. Still going over the shadows. Again, you can layer the colors. That's the beauty of this and using this paper. But now we're going a little bit further into the lighter areas of the skin tone that's already been mapped out. And with each layer of color that I add, or each, color bit that I add, it is slowly filling the tooth of the paper. And as it fills the tooth of the paper, it will look smoother and smoother. This is a really ugly phase, like the ugly duckling phase, where the color looks really rough and, color transitions aren't very smooth. You kind of have to have a little faith in the process and in yourself when you're at this point in layering pencils. And if you're not sure, take a scrap piece of paper and just, test the colors together on a scrap piece of paper. There's no, it's coloring. There's no rule that says you can't, test your colors first. You can't, you can practice before you do this. Or, with printable coloring pages, the other nice thing is you can always just print another one and do it over, which I've done. Okay. Nothing wrong with a do-over, right? Okay. There we go. Going a little further out. A little further out. This is very relaxing for me. I wasn't able to color at all last week. It was just too crazy in my house with little kids and just busy life. Sometimes life gets in the way of coloring. And that's when I find I really need coloring the most. When life gets super hectic and crazy and maybe a bit stressful. Because coloring is my, calm, quiet, happy time. And I need it. Okay. Next is the Sienna brown. So again, slowly getting a little bit lighter. We're building up our shadows. And this is a bit of it's a lighter, more red or warmer brown. So we have a lot of cool in that dark shadow. This will warm it up a little bit in this color palette. Just trying to get under her eye a bit there. So in the shadows, a little bit cooler with that blue. Again, remember the blue was the first color we started with, blue-purple. And now we're warming her tone a little bit And I'm going even further into the lighter areas of the skin tone. It's all about shadow and light. I mean, the light is coming from this direction, so the shadows are on this side. And again, that's why you block out the shadows first, so you know where the shadows are going to be, get a sense of where the light's coming from. And then from there, it's a lot easier to build up the shadows, the skin tone, which gives her a nice sort of, sense of volume or three-dimensional feel to it. There we go. Getting those fingers. Lots of little circles. And we know where the light's coming from this direction, so it makes sense that her body is probably casting a bit more of a shadow on this part of the forearm. So it's okay for that to be a little bit darker, because it's in shadow. Just leave like a little sliver of a lighter area there. Filling up the tooth with each pass of color in that shadow darker area. And sometimes it does take a few passes of color, a few, extra rounds of these colors to fully fill in the tooth and get the nice, rich, and smooth skin tone. And that's where it's almost meditative, for me anyway, because then I can just do the same thing over and over again without thinking, because I've already done it once. So that's where it becomes more, about mindful coloring, where you're just sort of forget everything else and you can just enjoy a quiet, relaxing coloring experience. Again, something I really needed last week when life got super crazy and hectic with small children. They got to color, by the way. Super jealous. All right. Next, you know what? I want this a little bit more. See, you think you're done, but then you're not. Just want that a little bit smoother. And I'm being very gentle when I get to these lighter areas here with this pencil. I don't want to press too hard. At least not yet. But I do want a bit of this color in the lighter areas. So I need to make sure I get it on the paper. Yeah. Okay. Now we go for this light color. And salmon pink. So it's interesting. There's so many different types of skin tones in the world, which is fabulous because I want to color them all. This color in, say, a more light skin tone would not be considered the lightest color in the palette. It would be, maybe a medium, maybe even a dark for, certain skin tones. But for this color palette, it is the lightest color. And now, hopefully you can see how it is really, it's going over the whole thing again, small circles. It is blending all those other layers of colors together. and really tying it together beautifully. And I am going to go back, you know, I'm not done after this layer. But now you can really see how all those layers of color pull together. With lighter skin tones, the white of the paper does a lot of the work, actually. You know, if you let the white of the paper show through, you know, for the white highlights of the skin, you can do that. You can totally get away with that. With, you know, a nice, dark, rich skin tone, you can't do that too much. You really need to fill in the entire color palette with all these rich colors. You can do white highlights, and that's actually fantastic, to get the contrast between the really dark and the really light. But for all these layers of color, you want it really rich. For this particular skin tone. And all skin tones are different. And that is fantastic, because that means I have more opportunities to play with more color palettes. For me, it's all about color palettes. Everything. And you can look at different skin tones and, you know, is it a darker undertone? Is it a warm undertone? Is it cool? Is the skin shiny? Is it more matte? Although I have Italian ancestors, so in my family, everyone's skin is shiny and oily. And we just keep going. I'm gonna get more detail in that area. Oops, sorry. My phone is on because my kids are at a play group right now, and I am a mom 24/7. I am always on call with my little kids. So, yes, occasionally you will hear my phone in the background. Yeah, look at that. Remember, I'm going to go back again with the colors, slowly building up my layers and the color palette. Real quick though, I'm going to take this extra color, raspberry, and it's subtle, especially with all the dark that we have already going on, but this red is a very rich red. So it can hold its own in this color palette, and I'm just going to use it to add some very rosy highlights to her skin tone. And it's not going to go everywhere. It's not going to go over the whole thing, but just certain areas. I'm going to make them a little bit rosier. And this red will, you know, blend with all the other layers of colors that I'm going to keep adding. Especially cheek, tip of the nose, eyes, lips, you know, just certain areas, elbows. Those areas of the body or, you know, the anatomy can be a little more rosy, a little more pink just naturally. So those are good spots. Fingers, tips of your fingers get pretty red sometimes. Those are good spots to add a little more rosiness. Knees. This is a fairly simple, straightforward color palette. Keeping it in the brown family, mostly, with just some touch of blue, touch of red. If you really want to go nuts, I mean, you know, and study skin tones, there are so many colors in a single, you know, person's skin tone. You can just go crazy adding an insane amount of colors, which is very fun to do. But I'm trying to keep this as a very fairly straightforward color palette. There we go. All right. So now we have our touches of red. I want to push my shadow, so I'm going to go back with this. And just to the darkest areas now, not as I did before where I, you know, was really blocking out my shadows. Now I'm just trying to push where I really want to make sure that it's dark and rich. The folds here, here, and this line right here, you know, making them a little more crisp. Because contrast is perfectly fine and wonderful and helps. Get this. All right. And I'm just going again, you know, getting the next layer of color built up here. Blending with that red. And it goes faster, I think, with each layer of color. Because you know where your shadows are now, you know where the colors are going to be going. Have a pretty good sense of how they're playing together on the paper. And the paper itself is, you know, getting a lot more filled in now. You know, the tooth of the paper is getting a lot more filled in now. Set this a little bit lower, just so you guys don't have to listen to all the notifications. Done. Of my phone. But it's still on, in case my kiddos need anything. Okay. This is why I like lining up my pencils, my colors. So I could just go right down the line and do layer after layer after layer. Again, without really having to think about it after too long. Little circles. Here we go. I love this rich dark shadow. I had to I did a portrait recently of a baby, and yeah, babies are cute, of course, they're adorable, but the complexion of the baby was exceptionally light, very, very light, and like I said, it was adorable, but in terms of color, you know, I had to be so careful with the, you know, the delicate color palette, but also it was a very limited color palette. I mean, the range of shadow and light was not exceptionally dramatic. And I like dramatic shadows and darks and all that good stuff. So every time I studied the baby's face, you know, looking at the color palette and everything, I kept hoping to find more shadows. Which were not there. And, you know, when I do custom portraits, it's all about accuracy. So I couldn't play too much with that. I couldn't just start making stuff up. But babies are still super adorable and cute. Though I do prefer to draw animals. I love drawing animals. They are very honest models. And by that I mean, you know, they're not ashamed of who they are, they're not ashamed of what they look like, they're totally cool with themselves. And it is very refreshing. Their nature is their nature, and that's the way it is. Like my cat, who is currently snoring in the background. Alright. Get back to this. Sienna Brown. So many layers of color. This is why I often do time-lapse videos instead of these full coloring videos, because it takes so long. But every now and then, I slow it down. And I think that helps. I hope it helps. Because then you can see how long it really takes. You can get a feel for how long it really takes to do all the layers of color to get the nice rich palette. Don't want there to be some strange misconception that, you know, you can do all these layers in 5 minutes. Oh, my cat woke up to go get some food. Okay. Lots of layers of color. Go. And all this, you know, all these layers of color, all this time that you put into it, that's another reason why I do stuff like I have my mole stick. Remember to support your hand and your wrist and your arm when you do this stuff. Otherwise, you will have a very, very tired, sore shoulder and forearm. I mean, it's a great workout. It's a great arm workout. All right. Get this lighter color going. Again, blending everyone together. And Prismacolor pencils, not the absolute best, but also not the absolute worst. You know, they're very, very well known, middle of the road color pencil. And that's why I use them a lot when I do videos and such. Because they're well known, one of the more accessible pencils for a lot of people. And this pencil color palette that I'm doing, you know, you don't have to do markers underneath it. You could just do the colored pencils. I'm gonna have to sharpen this pencil before I get to those fingers. Hold on. Alright, now let's try this. There it is. Yay. I mean, they're small, but I don't want to lose all the, you know, the slight bit of volume and depth in them, in the fingers. So you have to have a sharper pencil point for that. Obviously. Now here for this fold, I'm going to do a line instead of the circle. And here I'm going to do a line a bit. Just to get that crisp line. Here I did the same thing. I did a line instead of little circles. And then I go back to little circles. Sometimes you just have to do a straightforward line of color to get the effect. Here again, bit of reflective lighting, so I'm going to do just a line of that lighter color. Reflective lighting is, so say the light's coming from this direction, it'll go past her leg, bounce off something, and then reflect back onto her leg there. So this light line is called reflective lighting. It's a slight reflection of light, and it helps break up the darker part of the shadow, and it actually helps, believe it or not, add a little more sense of volume. Having light on both sides of the shadow. See here, a little bit more. It's not very obvious, you know, it's a very subtle touch of lighting. You don't have to do it. But visually, it adds another element to the whole image. Ankle. There we go. More lighting, reflective lighting in that calf area right there. Reflective lighting. Nice. Okay, so we're not done. I want rosy cheeks. Always, you want a nice, healthy, rosy glow. So I'm going to go back again with this red. And very gently add a touch more red to the whole thing. Or at least all the little areas that I want to have a bit more of a rosy glow going on. Then white. And I know I was just saying how I wanted nice, dark, rich skin tone, but part of that is having contrast. So the darker areas actually look darker. So I'm going to just add touches of highlights to certain areas of her skin tone. Not everywhere. For this smoother highlight part. So we have, just look at your own face. The cheekbones, the forehead here, the brow, and the closed eye that we have going on here, those catch a little more light because the light's coming from this direction, so they're going to be a little bit lighter. But now we have a nice contrast between the lighter area and this darker area. The chin is sticking out, you know, further than this jawline here, so that'll catch a little bit more light. The ear sticks out of the head. It'll catch a little bit more light. There we go. A little bit there. This part of the shoulder sticking out or coming out from the neck. So basically all the parts that are coming forward, that are putting themselves closer to the light, they're catching more light. So they're going to be a little bit whiter, a little bit brighter. And I'm just going to use white to add a little bit more volume to the whole thing. That way. Uh-oh. And then I press too hard. Don't press too hard. There we go. There's a line here that can catch some light. This leg, I mean, it's sticking right out. That'll catch a little more light. And I'm not losing all those layers of color that I had underneath. I mean, I'm obviously not losing all the shadow and all the beautiful color palettes that I've built up here. These are just accents, highlights. Okay, let's get this cheekbone going. And then, never done. I want smooth transitions. So I'm going to take this salmon pink again, and now I'm going to blend it with the white. So it's almost a bridge, this lighter color for the palette. Connecting the white highlight with the darker areas. Just going around, smoothing it out. And you can do this any way you want with this color palette. You can take these dark shadows and really pull them out even further into the body. checking to see where I want it. A little bit darker. And I'm not going with my absolute darkest every single time. This is one of the, second darkest colors in this palette. And it's still helping to push the shadows. And now, I mean, this is, one of the last layers of color, and it's going on very smooth because the tooth of the paper has been filled with all those other layers of color. So now these little circles that I'm doing, they're blending in beautifully with the colors underneath. And that is nice. And then I can jump to the chocolate color here. A little more blending. Don't want to lose those white highlights. I want to enhance the white highlights with a nice contrast or comparison. With some darker tones. Line, 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 line. There we go. Again, this is why I go for the heavier paper, so it can take a beating like this. It can take all these layers of color that I just keep adding. And it doesn't tear. It doesn't just, give up. It holds its own fairly well with all these colors that I'm doing. Gonna add more of that red. I love rosy red cheeks. And I don't want to lose the rosy red. And by adding this color in between layers, repeatedly, consistently, I'm definitely going to keep touches of this color very visually evident. Visually evident? Is that really like a proper phrase? Does that make sense when I say that? And then the lightest color, again, it's the lightest color in the palette, and it's the blender of the palette. Blending all these layers, smoothing everything out. Little circles. Almost there. I'm not sure if I'm trying to encourage you or me right now. Here we go. someone messaged me not too long ago. I did a video on how to layer colored pencils, and they were going through, I guess, a lot of my videos and looking at the colors, but they were looking at a lot of the time-lapse videos, and they were asking how long it actually takes. And I was honest. I was like, hours. It takes hours to layer the colors properly. And they wrote hours, plural? And I said yes, hours, plural. Okay, so there we've got a bit of a color palette now. Just have to get something that, of course, I forgot to get in the beginning. That's that guy right there. I just dropped my pencil. I'm a mess. I try to keep the screen nice and clean for you guys, but behind the scenes, I am a messy artist. Okay, so just want to get any bits of pigment. There you go. Nice, pretty paintbrush. Doing its job. There we go. Then, so the darker areas, like her eye, just a line. Because it's a small face. So there's not a lot of wiggle room for eyelashes. So we're just going to do just a touch of some crisp, darker shadows. There and there. Okay. And then I'm going to take this. That's my Jelly Roll white gel pen. And you don't have to do this. I mean, I love this skin tone. It looks gorgeous. If you do want to push your white highlights a smidge more, I don't know if you can even see what I'm doing. Let me know if this isn't clear. I'm adding just very gentle white touches. Little white dots, white dabs. Of color. And that gives sort of the feel of a bit of shine. So now you really have a nice contrast between, dark and light. But they're dots. I'm not doing strokes of color. I'm doing just little gentle dots of color. So you can very much see the colors showing through. So a good guide, if you do want to do this part of the color palette, which you don't, you absolutely don't, is wherever you put white pencil, in the center of wherever you put white pencil, that's where you would put these a bit more extreme white highlights. If you want a bit shinier look or effect, or shiny, glowing, I don't know, what's the best word for this? This arm is really sticking out in the light, isn't it? Okay, there we go. Here, do a little bit. Nice line of light there. That's a beautiful line of her shoulder. Look at that. So do that. And then I'll show you something else. So you could take a white pencil. It's a white Prismacolor pencil, nothing fancy. And say you think the white is just too garish. It's just too striking. You can gently tap those dots with your white pencil, and you see how it softens them? So instead of a super bright contrast, wow, I can't speak. Contrast. You can have something a little more subtle, but still getting some brighter white in there. Come on, thank you. So now you really have some brighter white highlights. But you don't lose the darkness of the shadows. You really still have a nice, dark, rich skin tone. I like the bit of contrast. Next is the hair. I'm going to do real quick, and I'm going to actually use a lot of the same colors as the skin tone. Again, it's more of a consistent color palette for this particular doohickey. So I'm going to do the violet blue, and the Espresso, not this, the Sienna brown, and white. So push these guys back just so you have a nice visual. So dark, medium, light. Pretty straightforward for the hair. And before I was doing dark circles. Now I'm just going to do strokes of color for individual hair strands. And the hair is pretty small here. She has it tied up in a tight bun. So it's a little bit different doing flowing hair or where the hair is, the main character of the image. This is a supporting role. Now the medium, going right back over. Strokes of color. Sienna brown. Going over that again. That going. Right there. That's what I'm doing. And then white. And this is highlights of color. She has shiny hair. I'm giving her shiny hair today. So getting the white highlights for shiny hair. Then, because layers are what we're all about today, go back to the shadow, or the darkest shadow color. Line, line, line. And we're still filling in the tooth of the paper with our layers. Just filling it in with lines of color instead of circles of color. Medium, Line. Sometimes it's fun to go totally nuts and have a completely different color palette with the hair, but I kind of wanted to keep this a bit straightforward with the color so I could talk more about layering and skin tone and all that good stuff. There we go. White again. Just in that center area where the, again, light is hitting the hair, giving us those dramatic highlights. I can do my pen. Real quick, I'm actually going to do this. She has an earring. Give that earring some nice highlight there. So if you want to, with the white gel pen, just because I already used it in the skin, so you can see how it plays in hair. Just doing some colors, or some lines over the colors with the white pen. There we go. Then smooth those lines a little bit. Just want to get some nice color going on there. Okay, that is it for today. We did a fantastic job focusing on that skin tone. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio. Remember to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next video, and stay creative.